Hello everyone, I am Adesha Josh and this is Africa Matters. Despite COVID-19 restrictions and disruptions, some of the best African football is on display in Cameroon. This week, we focus on the Africa Cup of Nations. And we'll speak to Malians about the sanctions imposed on the ruling military junta by the West African regional bloc, Ecowas, after election delays. And we profile a Congolese chef who is hoping to earn a Michelin star with the Afro-fusion cuisine he's creating, using recipes and spices from grandmothers' kitchens across Africa. The long-awaited Africa Cup of Nations football tournament has finally kicked off in Cameroon, despite the pandemic and despite security challenges in the country's minority English-speaking region. Cameroon was scheduled to host in 2019, but the competition was moved to Egypt because the stadiums were not ready. Afcom 2021 was then postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Some of the biggest names in football, including Liverpool's Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane, Chelsea's Edouard Mendy, Manchester City's Riyad Mahrez, and Paris Saint-Germain's Achraf Hakimi, are among more than 200 players competing for their countries. They've been speaking about their hopes for Africa's biggest tournament.
I think this is the only thing I didn't win yet, but I was lucky that we go to the World Cup after 28 years or maybe 30 years now. But I always say I would love to win something with the country. I came here, every time I come to the national team, I'm proud to wear the shirt. I give my best to the team. I win individual award, but that's not important. The team award always comes first. Hopefully we can do something this time. But I don't think we are the first candidate for this tournament. But we do our best to win it. We have a good coach. We have a good team. We have a very good group. And I play for the national team for 10, 11 years now. So I know we have a very good team. So we give our best and hopefully we win it.
We won our Afcon 3 years ago. We are the title holders. But you have to know that even if we are the title holders, that doesn't mean we will be the favorite, that we're going to win it once again. It will be even harder than the last Afcon. I think the standards are higher, the teams are better now. We arrive with a lot of desire and ambition to try to do the same as Afcon 2019. And we will try to do something big for the country.
Organizers and participants have to observe strict COVID-19 protocols during the tournament. Some players have already missed matches after testing positive for COVID-19. Fans have to be fully vaccinated and show a negative test results before being allowed into stadiums. And those who can't get a front row seat in Cameroon are watching from the comfort of their homes or other venues with less restrictions to cheer on their national teams. Palam David visited one such viewing centers in Abuja to get reactions after the Nigeria-Egypt match.
We just finished watching one of the biggest matches of the African Cup of Nations, Nigerian versus Egypt. Nigeria secured a 1-0 win over Egypt. According to FIFA's ranking, Nigeria is placed 9 places ahead of Egypt. Egypt have secured the Afcon Cup for 7 times now, while Nigeria has taken the cup 3 times now. And so many Nigerians, fans, football lovers are optimistic that Nigerians are going to win one more time, maybe this year, so take the cup home.
Well, we thank God with the result. That is first. And and for the match, they tried. At least they won the match, but they need to still improve. Yes, but the game is good.
Did you expect a 1-0 or you expected 10-0 or something?
I didn't even the 1-0. I didn't expect it because what Nigeria are playing. What Nigeria are playing the past few years, very poor performance.
Everybody is looking happy and wonderful. We are proud of the players, and the Afcon is very good compared to the others. So this year in Cameroon, the Cameroon people, they organize the competition is very good way, and the players are trying their own best.
Let's hear more from Calvin Onwuka, an African football expert and the publisher of ACLSports.com. He joins me from Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Adesha, for having me. Are we on?
Oh, yes, we are on. We are on. Look, Afcon is finally underway, despite all the pushback and COVID-19 challenges. Let me ask you, what's your assessment of the African biggest tournament so far?
It's been the football has been fine. The football has been fine. I've got it's kudos to CAF that they've actually been able to put this tournament on, given all the shenanigans that Europeans and FIFA, UEFA tried to do to stop the competition from going on. So yeah, for that, I'll give CAF a lot of credit for having the competition. But to be fair to CAF, they did a dry run with Chan last year, in January of last year. So with that, I think with the experience they got from hosting Chan, I think it's standing them in good stead for this tournament currently.
You said the shenanigans. Let's talk about that a little bit. Afcon is the second oldest continental tournament after CONMEBOL, but it continues to fight for recognition. Why is that? And what must be done to give the tournament the respect it deserves?
Why is that? I think over the last 20 years, sub-Saharan Africa especially, we have, Africa has absolutely given up football in Africa itself for football in Europe. In this tournament, for instance, all the best players play in Europe. Ask every 9 to 25-year-old in Africa, and their fixation is with the UEFA Champions League, the UEFA Europa League, the Premier League, the Serie A, La Liga. So it's that is why this struggle for recognition will continue to go on. And I think last time I was on this station, I mentioned that a lot of these factors, the biggest factor is economic. Until football in Africa becomes economically viable, until CAF finds a way to ensure that the football is on sound economic footing, the competition will continue to struggle for recognition, as you put it. And it hurts me, I have to say.
Well, how do you explain the initial reluctance of European clubs to release African players for this tournament?
That for me, I found that particularly irritating. I think the African countries could have done more because they have FIFA rules backing them. So they could have done more. They could have insisted to every club, especially like clubs like Watford. They could have insisted to Watford, if you're not releasing Dennis, you're not going to be able to use Dennis for as long as Nigeria are still in the tournament. African clubs could have absolutely done more. And CAF itself could have done more in terms of pressurizing the clubs via FIFA to ensure that the FIFA rules are abided by all the clubs.
Well, top African footballers also have to play abroad to get recognition. What needs to change in continental football to make it more lucrative locally?
Again, that's why I talked about the economic part of it. It's all about migration. Everybody is looking for, how do you put it, greener pastures. They're looking for where you get more money.
The highest bidder.
That's it. And the most money in football at the moment is in UEFA, is in Europe. So the best players, being great employers that they are, they will search out the best players from around the world and get them to come and play for their clubs. So that's that. For us to keep players in Africa, again, I have to go back to the top. We have to make our club competitions in Africa very financially suitable, very financially attractive to start with. They are not. They're not at the moment. Until we're able to do that, we'll not be able to keep our best players in the continent.
Now let's take a bet. Which country do you think, as an expert, will lift the Afcon this year?
I would do this.
You're the expert, so.
last tournament, I was on a program like that, and I stuck out my neck for Morocco, and Morocco just absolutely destroyed my prediction. For this, personally, I wouldn't look past the Super Eagles of Nigeria, but they're still strong. There are other countries there. There's Egypt, Algeria, fantastic squad. They're the holders.
Yeah.
So really. Algeria to return the trophy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to hold you to that. And if you lose, you owe me. You owe me. We'll talk about how much you owe me after the show. Thank you so much, Calvin Onwuka, an African football expert and the publisher of ACLSports.com, for speaking to us on the ongoing AFCON. Thank you. West African nations have taken a hardline stance against Mali, cutting all economic and diplomatic ties after the ruling military junta delayed national elections scheduled for next month. Members of the UN have also criticized the change in the election timetable, but Russia and China have blocked the Security Council from supporting new sanctions. Obeida Hito has the latest.
Described as heavy-handed and extreme, Malians are united in their rejection of what they say are illegal international sanctions.
Let them take other measures worse than the current sanctions. We will continue to support Assimi Goïta. I ask all Malians to unite for our full independence.
It won't only hurt Mali. Many Ecowas countries will also lose. They send products to us, and our products also go out to these Ecowas countries, and we will be affected.
Self-styled interim president and leader of the 2020 military junta, Assimi Goïta, agreed with the Economic Community of West African States, Ecowas, to hold elections next month. But he recently changed the timeline.
The authority find the proposed chronogram for a transition totally unacceptable. This chronogram simply means that an illegitimate military transition government will take the Malian people hostage during the next 5 years.
The elections delay has triggered sanctions by the 15-member Community of African States. Sanctions include a complete land and air blockade of the landlocked country. But Guinea has said it will keep its borders with Mali open. They've also called for the withdrawal of ECOWAS ambassadors and cutting off all official ties, and imposed a trade embargo in addition to freezing their assets in the ECOWAS Central Bank. The transitional government says they can't organize a free and fair vote next month because they're fighting Al-Qaeda and Daesh-linked terror groups. UN peacekeepers and civilians are continually facing attacks by armed groups. And nearly 5 million Malians depend on humanitarian aid. Despite those concerns, the military junta leader Goïta called on the public to mobilize in defiance of the sanctions.
It is regrettable that the efforts of the transitional government were ignored. Fellow countrymen, it is time for all Malians to unite to express and affirm our principles and defend our nation.
He's called for protests on Friday, raising the stakes even further for a transitional military authority in search of legitimacy. Obeida Hito, Africa Matters.
In Somalia, drought is causing chronic malnutrition in children, and it's forcing tens of thousands of people off their land towards cities that struggle to host them. The combination of war and global heating is resulting in a complex humanitarian crisis in the Horn of Africa. Claire Herriotts reports.
Somalia is caught between conflict and the climate crisis. Various militant groups have been fighting government forces for more than 10 years, and extreme drought is compounding the security situation. The drought is forcing tens of thousands of farmers and herders to migrate to cities that lack the infrastructure to support them.
Over 3.2 million people are currently experiencing the cumulative effects of 3 consecutive below-average rainy seasons, and at least 169,000 people have been forced into internal displacement and are in search of food, water, and pasture.
This map shows the average rainfall for the last 3 months of 2021. The blue represents the rain, and it's concentrated at the top of the image. The photograph on the right is from December. It measures the health or greenness of the vegetation, and there's very little green, indicating a lack of moisture in the soil. The drought is making it harder for families to provide enough food and water for children and livestock.
When all the livestock died, we had to move. We don't have anything now. Some days we find what we need in town, and on other days we don't.
In the past, God would always leave something for us, but now some people don't have any of their animals. One of my cousins has nothing left, not a single animal. We had to flee. You go where you can when you lose everything.
Save the Children estimates half of children under 5 in southern Somalia are malnourished. The UN and its partners have launched a humanitarian response plan worth almost $1.5 billion to help the most vulnerable in Somalia. With predictions showing the effects of the climate crisis on the Horn of Africa only getting worse, the funds are desperately needed. Claire Herriot, Africa Matters.
In Zimbabwe, coronavirus lockdowns meant schools were closed for a long time. It kept kids safe from the virus, but exposed girls and young women to a different kind of danger. Teenage pregnancy in the country has risen steeply as girls as young as 12 faced increased risk of sexual violence during the long hours away from classroom. Juliet Aiga takes a closer look.
Most 13-year-old girls have few responsibilities, apart from studying for school and helping their parents with chores. But Virginia has much more important things on her mind, or rather, one much more important thing.
I'm 13 years old and I got pregnant at 12. I was still at school in January when I realized I was pregnant, and then I stopped going to school in March.
Now Virginia starts off her day by preparing her siblings for school. While her schoolmates are in the classroom, she spends the day fetching buckets of water and selling fruits and vegetables by the roadside so she can support her 3-month-old baby. Zimbabwe's Ministry of Women's Affairs says that more than 5,000 teenage girls fell pregnant during the country's 6-month lockdown, during which schools were closed. And now the burden of new motherhood and the stigma around premarital pregnancies means most of them will never return to education.
For a pregnant girl child to be back in school, there is a need to teach parents that it's possible for a child to go back to school.
Under Zimbabwean law, sexual interaction with anyone under the age of 16 is considered statutory rape. But most parents would rather marry off their pregnant daughters to an offender than pursue legal enforcement in order to avoid social shame. Virginia herself had hoped for marriage, but the older man who raped her has denied paternity. Luckily, her family has not disowned her, so she's been able to stay at home. But she wants to complete her education.
I'm thinking of going back to school and restarting my grade 7 and proceeding to Form 1.
To help reintegrate the young women, Zimbabwe's Education Ministry has been pushing policies to allow teenage mothers back in class.
So we have had quite a number of girls who fell pregnant because of the COVID-19 induced lockdowns. But still, because of the policy that we have, this Education Amendment Act, which allows them to come back to school, we have been having community outreach programs throughout the whole nation to encourage these learners to come back to school, to continue with their education, because it's not the end of the world.
While the law now allows pregnant girls to stay in school and return once they've given birth, changing the cultural mindset of their parents is no easy task. It'll take more than a few new laws to make sure young girls stop paying with their futures for the crimes of men. Juliet Aiga, Africa Matters.
You're watching Africa Matters, and here's a roundup of other stories making news across the continent. The World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says his organization has been blocked from sending medicine into Ethiopia's Tigray region, even though they were allowed to send medicines to neighboring Afar and Amara. He also accuses the federal government of putting Tigray under siege during the ongoing crisis, an allegation the government denies.
This region has been under siege for more than a year. Imagine a complete blockade of 7 million people for more than a year, and there is no food, there is no medication, no medicine, no electricity, no telecom, no media, nobody can report. And when there is no telephone, I think accessing families is difficult. No cash, no bank service. And imagine the impact of all this on health. Lack of medicine has direct impact and people are dying. But lack of food also kills. And on top of that, daily drone attacks is killing people.
Several people were killed on Wednesday by a suicide car bombing near the airport in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Terror group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it was targeting a convoy escorting Somali government and foreign officials. The attack took place 3 days after Somali leaders had agreed on a new timetable for long-delayed elections. The government has condemned the attack as cowardly. Millions of Nigerians are back on Twitter after a ban that lasted 7 months. The government suspended the social media platform in June last year after it deleted a tweet by President Muhammadu Buhari in which he threatened to punish regional secessionists. But the government has reversed the ban, saying Twitter agreed to several conditions, including opening a local office in Nigeria. Twitter itself hasn't disclosed whether it agreed to the demands. Analysts believe the ban has cost the Nigerian economy millions of dollars, especially the small businesses which rely on the platform to reach their customers. And Salima Mukasanga made history by becoming the first woman to officiate at the African Cup of Nations. She was the fourth official for the game between Guinea and Malawi on January the 10th. The 33-year-old, who was born in Rwanda, is one of the most respected female referees in the sport. She has officiated games at the Women's World Cup and the Africa Women's Cup of Nations. Of the 63 match officials at this year's tournament, 4 are women. The cuisines of Africa are as diverse as its cultures. One thing almost all of the continent's foods have in common is that they burst with flavor. A Congolese chef is earning rave reviews as it blends aromas and techniques from across the continent to create a one-of-a-kind experience. Taibe Aiden has the report.
Dieuve Malonga is a chef from the Republic of the Congo. He learned his craft in some of Europe's top restaurants, and now he's operating his own in Rwanda's capital, Kigali.
Malonga restaurant is like, we call it like a laboratory, like the place we come, we taste and we try, and all the time we work, we are open like 4 days and take 2 days just for preparation to understand more everything what we do, we taste it. Sometimes to get a recipe we can take like 3 months. And again, we try till the time we say, okay, this is what we want, and we can share it with our guests.
Malonga calls his menu Afro-fusion because it's a mixture of tastes from all countries on the continent.
We can get spices from Nigeria, like can be like black pepper from Nigeria. You can have like banana plantain from here in Rwanda, or you can get sometimes meat from Burundi. Like all of these elements come from different countries, and we create a recipe on this element we have. That's why we call it like a fusion, like Afro-fusion.
Malonga has visited nearly 3/4 of the countries in Africa. Everywhere he's gone, he's learned new cooking techniques. But that isn't the only thing that distinguishes his cuisine from others.
I travel in different countries to go to learn to the grandmother. And when I get this old recipe, and I bring it in my laboratory, like we call it like a laboratory here, and we try with my chef to give something modern touch, or sometimes we're inspired by this grandmother recipe to create something new.
Malonga is passionate about promoting the culinary African heritage.
Like something different now is happening in Africa, and people are getting interested to know more about African cuisine, because when you talk about African cuisine, you go on Google, sometimes you see just rice, or like mafé, or like yassa, but it's more than that. It's more than that. That's why I think maybe people are getting more interested to know more about African cuisine.
Malonga plans to open another restaurant in rural Rwanda next year. He wants it to serve as a training ground and inspire the next generation of African chefs. Taiba Aiden, Africa Matters.
This week, we explore Madagascar's main seaport city of Toamasina. Its port handles 90% of Madagascar's container traffic. Its parks are home to different species of lemur and enjoy white sand beaches. That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag Africa Matters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle at @DayshowaJosh. You can watch this show again on YouTube if you search for Africa Matters. We will leave you with these images from the Africa Cup of Nations.